Hello, everyone. Welcome to our discussion on using AI to elevate your Microsoft Dynamics IQ. I'm Alex Gorel, your moderator for today's session, and I'm thrilled to have each of you joining us. Throughout this exclusive webinar, you'll discover how to tackle the most pressing challenges organizations face today using Dynamics 365 and Azure AI, while also learning how Synoptek's strategic approach can transform your operations, enhance your enterprise architecture, and deliver tangible results. Whether you're here to gain insights, take next steps, or simply are curious about the topic, I'm confident you'll find today's discussion both engaging and informative. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to drop them in the Q&A and we'll address them at the end of the session. We'll also be sharing a special offer to all attendees, and you'll receive a copy of the slides and access to the recording post-event. As you may already be aware, Synoptek delivers accelerated business results through systems integrations and managed services for mid-enterprise. We deliver full lifecycle technology consulting, implementation, and managed services for both application layer and infrastructure layer solutions, supported by Synoptek platform that delivers consistent reporting, service levels, and an integrated experience across offerings. We are a leading cloud platform managed service provider and have strong alliances and partnerships. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our speakers. Rohan Roger, Client Advisor, Synoptek. Guest speaker, Prachi Mishra, Technical Sales Specialist, Dynamics 365 and Copilot from Microsoft. I invite Rohan to get us started.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure for us to spend the next hour together. So really appreciate you taking time and joining us. We'll be talking about some of the exciting tailwinds that we're seeing propel some of our most valuable, information systems of record. And really, this is a very exciting time, but also a time of decisive change. And in that spirit, I'd really like to start with this quote. Digital transformation lies not just in adopting new technologies, but in really fundamentally restructuring business operations and culture to sustain long-term growth and competitive edge. And this really governs the way we look at any implementation or initiative for ourselves or any of our customers. I always ask myself, both at the start, during, and after the process, how are we pushing the needle for the businesses that we're working with? So that's the lens through which we'll get started today. Let's quickly just go over what Prachi and I will speak to. First, we'll touch over enterprise architecture as it relates to Microsoft Dynamics. Next, we'll discuss just the basics of AI as we know it today. And when we say AI, we really talk about the democratized AI, which is generative AI, and go over some of those core offerings. And then finally, we'll discuss evolving dynamics into intelligent dynamics. So let's do a quick poll here at the start so we can tailor our content to everyone's level. The question is, do you think you're leveraging AI's full potential to improve Dynamics' experience? So yes, no, or are you not sure? All right, while we wait for that to come in, it's really an interesting question because no matter where we are in our journey, the exciting thing about this technology is that it's evolving constantly. So one of the needs of the hour is really to remain abreast with all the enhancements that are coming down the pipeline. And it's really very critical, really very critical to, just both remain educated, but also something that you could be working on today may not very work well with the AI technology that's available, the context windows that are available. But a couple of weeks down the line, as the context windows become bigger and the models become more sophisticated, you may go, oh, this is actually a really useful use case. So that's really very interesting. Take the fact that we have multimodal models now. And that really moves the needle for all the implementations that we're looking at. Let's just look at some of the results here. Awesome. No, those are really great insights. So as we continue to move forward, we just want to talk about, we went over the agenda, but we do want to talk about how we're going to do this today. And we'll probably do this just a little bit differently. This is probably all the MBA training, but we'll try to use the case approach to go over the materials together rather than just being a 60-minute monologue. 2024 really is the year of the customer's journeys and outcomes. And so we'll try to follow that trail. And also, whenever you see that logo, that icon on the top right, it means we're referring to the case here. So effectively, you've just come in, you're the head of technology for a large firm, working across industries, and you're providing professional services to the United States government. It's your first day, you're absolutely green. Your firm was awarded a $10 million contract, and you as the technology leader here have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders to really provide results efficiently and rapidly, right? So let's move into the boardroom. It's your first day, you're excited, you're wide-eyed, roll all the emotions, and you go into the boardroom and you hear these kinds of things. So IT is a cost center. Someone's saying that we can reduce overhead with AI. Other people are wondering about, is AI even safe? How do we maximize shareholder value? How do we get more cohesion, really? So you learn during all of these conversations that your firm is implementing some level or some version of a CRM through Microsoft Dynamics, and things aren't moving fast enough, right? So I know what you're thinking. This is all great information, very specific. What are you going to do with all these great insights? But moving on, really, this is really the reality of what a lot of us see every day in our boardrooms, in our management meetings, in our executive talks. And it's really up to us as technology leaders to coalesce all of these into understanding, are we moving towards are we using the fundamentals of a successful transformative strategy? And are we moving towards a collective vision? And when we talk about a successful transformative strategy, we really talk about 4 C's here. It needs to be continuous, it needs to be comprehensive, C-suite led, and it needs to challenge convention. And what we really mean within each of these 4 pillars is, if it's continuous, means that there's an understanding that it's a long-term effort. With continuous iteration and ideation, once something is achieved, when you do a proof of concept and you get a desired behavior, you need to move on to the next, whether it was desired or not. So continuously moving, and the technology constantly evolves, so we're constantly recalibrating. When it comes to being comprehensive, really, this is not just it's led by the technology vertical, but it really rewires the way an organization operates. So we really need to think about how are we developing and augmenting our technology-based capabilities, right? The third pillar is really this being C-suite led, which means that digital implementations are no longer just a technology function, right? All businesses are technology businesses. And so cross-functional collaboration is key, and coordinated investments there. And it needs to challenge convention. Like AI is doing that, generative AI is doing that. So we need to constantly think out of the box and realize, how is this technology going to employ us to be able to be more competitive, right? I think there's a great quote out there that really says, AI is not going to take over most of our functions, but people that use AI will. And so it's remaining at the forefront of that. And when we look at these 4 pillars, really, we try to ask ourselves, what is the common denominator here? And the common denominator really is that strategy needs to be driven by the business. As a technology leader, you are the facilitator the arbitrator, the orchestrator, but not the driver. The driver has to be the business. It has to be the business goals, right? So after going through all of that, let's go back. You're the new CIO here in the case, and you're really going to step back together and get everyone together, all your business leaders, and explain to them that this is a great tool. AI, generative AI is a great tool, but you need the right business framework to implement it and make it, like any technology, make it successful. And in order to do that, there's sort of a framework that you follow as the new tech head there. You first assess the current state, which is gather systems inventory, catalog all systems, understand what the data flow mapping is. Just document your data flow, identify data silos, redundancies, etc., and performance metrics. Identify any inefficiencies, and then you gather requirements again. You just talk to the business, understand what the pain points were that led you to moving towards Dynamics and implementing a CRM. Understand what the technical needs are, the compliance needs are, and really here is really where your CISOs, if you have them, really become a partner in having these conversations. Engage your CISO as early as possible so that you have a real partner in all of these items, because that's going to be critical. So once you've assessed, sort of gathered the requirements, the next step becomes solution design. So you really want to go back and make sure, from a business point of view, have you really identified all the gaps? And do those gaps actually map to the integration strategy and the data management strategy that's required? And asking those questions, at a very high level, will really, at this point, quite frankly, just open up the conversation to understanding, all right, we may need to revisit our roadmap, prioritize right, phase right, budget right, etc. So, and then this all sort of flows into sort of an evolve, transform, and envision model that we even follow here at Synoptek, because it's just it helps you constantly. There's a reason this is a wheel, because these are cyclical items. You always need to constantly assess, constantly make sure you understand your requirements, constantly close your gaps, and make sure you then open new ones. And that really is a wheel that when operated properly, will roll your organization and propel your organization forward. Okay, so back to the case. Your firm, we've already established that your firm has an implementation of CE. You did the entire exercise. You went through, you talked to all the players, and you gathered some more information that the dynamic CE implementation is primarily used for 4 things: automated case creation, unified interface for multiple teams at the organization to interface with your customers directly. You use it to do case routing and queues, basic CRM functions, and you use it for knowledge management, just maintaining a repository of what you are going to be responding with and what your documentation is. So in doing all of that, as you were doing your gap analysis, you sort of learned that based on the current state, the user adoption is low at your organization, and a lot of people are actually using Outlook because they think Outlook is faster, right? So it's an implementation that isn't being utilized very well. There's a large backlog of cases, low NPS scores from customers, and you have a very large number of agents and you keep hiring, but you can't seem to close your backlog, right? So it's really time now to explore the art of the possible with AI. And so we've talked about enterprise architecture in your current state. So now we'll go into what are some of the key concepts really that you need to, as the new head of technology at your organization, impart in other folks to make them really understand what systems are available and what systems we're dealing with. So it's with that lens that we'll talk through AI 101, both at the level of the industry and the level of dynamics. So the first real thing that we really, really like to go over, and again, a lot of you have probably already heard a lot about this, but it's important for us to frame every conversation around AI correctly, is that there is a distinct difference and a cultural difference really that all of us are going to need to grapple with ourselves, and then also impart in our other technology, our other business leaders, right? And that's the difference between deterministic systems and probabilistic systems. So most people, most folks, myself included, everyone included, have worked primarily with deterministic systems. Think of your calculator as one, right? You've got those straight lines in that diagram that's on your screen right now. Input, output, if then statements. If you input numbers and operations, the calculator will perform a precise, predictable computation and give you an output. 2 plus 2 is always 4, right? The outcome is fixed, and there are rules of arithmetic because they're clear and unchanging, right? And some traditional AI has been deterministic as well. The systems that we're talking about, generative AI, which is democratized AI, is really more probabilistic, which means that these are models that can, that are natural language processing. They can generate text or images, and they operate on a probabilistic basis. So instead of a fixed outcome, it provides results based on patterns that it has learned from data. And as you can see, even in the diagram, you have, wavy lines, flowers, pie charts, things that deterministic systems can't do, but probabilistic systems can do. For instance, if you ask an AI to write a poem about the sea, it could produce a poem, but it would produce a different poem each time because it's influenced by probabilities of the word, sea, the context that it may have at that time, etc., and the styles it learned during training. So the outcome varies. In the same calculator example, and if you ask calculator 99 times today, a deterministic calculator, what 2 plus 2 is, each time it'll say 4. But if you ask an AI system what 2 plus 2 is, the 10th or the 15th time, it'll start doubting itself and it'll start questioning whether it's giving you the right answer or not. And that's really its strength that we'll be touching on today. So now that we've conceptually scratched the surface on what kind of AI we're talking about, I'll turn it over to Prachi, our Microsoft partner, to go in depth on some of the offerings here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rohan. And yeah, as we look at, generative AI across the board, I definitely want to emphasize the fact that, we're seeing so many different offerings across all of our companies. And with that, Microsoft has multiple offerings when it comes to AI. And the first one is probably one that you've all on this call heard of. It's your Microsoft Copilot, which is going to seamlessly integrate with your existing productivity applications like Outlook, Teams, PowerPoint, and Word. This is honestly the best way to scale user adoption across your entire organization because it meets your users in their flow of work. I know me personally, I was one of the worst early adopters of AI until I started using Microsoft Copilot because it would contextually show up for me to make my life easier. So then I was like, it's not that bad. I really love this. And now if you took it away from me, you'd have to fight me. So I really love Microsoft Copilot because it meets them contextually in your flow of work. And honestly, everyone lives in their systems of productivity. So this is going to allow them to be more efficient and productive, as Rohan mentioned, with those benefits of AI. And again, everything is secure, right? When you're using a Microsoft solution, it's protected by enterprise-grade Azure security, compliance, and privacy. And we have very thorough documentation on how we run on trust. So that's our first Microsoft AI offering, Microsoft Copilot. Next, we have Copilot Studio. Now, this is where you can actually create your own custom copilots and even extend first-party copilots with additional data sources and customize them with your specific use cases that you have in your business. And I do want to emphasize that this is a low-code solution, so you don't need to be a developer to create copilots. This is essentially the next generation of Power Virtual Agents. So for any of you in the call today, if you've used PVA before, you'll know that it's a very similar user interface, but now it's infused with generative AI. And you're going to have that conversational AI and chatbots, which are going to significantly improve customer engagement and service efficiency. And finally, we have Azure AI Studio. This is going to provide that unified environment for AI development, really those large-scale projects to give developers the tools that they need to build and deploy AI models. So you might be wondering, when do I use which offering? And we get this question all the time from our customers. And what I like to say is Copilot Studio is what you should look at for low code. Those are for your citizen, data users who have experience in the Power Platform. They can create their own copilots. whereas Azure AI Studio is more pro code, really geared more for your developers and those large scale AI products. They have, their own strengths, and we definitely invite you to experiment with both depending on who the end user is. And my personal favorite is that Microsoft Copilot can be used by every single person. So that's the best way to scale AI adoption across your entire organization. Now, let's actually dive in further into how Microsoft has infused AI across its entire tech stack and embedded those Copilot capabilities across all of the Dynamics modules. And that's because at Microsoft, we want to empower every person on the planet to achieve more. And that's why there's like a Copilot experience for every single solution Microsoft Cloud experience. You're ultimately the captain deciding what assistance you need from your intelligent Copilot, because ultimately you're the one driving and guiding how you're utilizing it. So let's, dive in a little deeper into each of these copilots. So for those of you on the call who use Sales CRM, you'll notice that there's some copilot capabilities that allow you to chat about your sales data within the CRM itself. It gives you AI-driven recommendations and insights like, hey, you haven't talked to this lead in a while. Make sure to follow up. So it'll pop up for you on the right-hand side and contextually meet you where you are without you having to manually search through your emails, your Teams meetings, because it's all pulling from your data. If we look at Copilot in our marketing solution, which aligns with Dynamics 365 customer insights and journeys, the users of Copilot marketing can chat about, campaign content generation. They can create these compelling, personalized marketing experiences. And they can even chat about the marketing performance analytics in a conversational way. So instead of having to create custom dashboards, they can just ask their Copilot for the latest updates on, how many people are attending this campaign, who's responded to emails, and really get granular as you need to. And as we move on to the different modules in customer engagement, we also have Copilot in customer service that directly aligns with what Rohan has been mentioning with the case that they're talking about, right? A lot of times your customer service agents are struggling with the amount of data sources they have to go through. And it can be tough having to come up with a quick response while making sure the customer is happy. With Copilot in customer service, you now have contextual AI understanding because it's going to surface relevant information while they're in their agent desktop. And ultimately, that's going to improve customer satisfaction and increase net promoter score as well. And finally, we can't forget about you finance folks. Copilot in finance allows you to have automated financial processes and predictive insights in your Dynamics 365 finance instance. So you can not only see, financial data comparisons, but also information on bank reconciliation. So again, we weren't joking when we said, hey, we're really infusing AI across our entire tech stack. And it's ultimately going to improve that IQ for your Dynamics solutions that you're using today. I know it's improved my IQ. So how can we get started, right? And as I was mentioning before, every single person can get started with AI today. And that's why at Microsoft, we're starting with the tools that you're using every day, like Outlook and Teams. So let's take a look at your sales organization, for example. They are the lifeblood of your business, and they mostly live in their systems of productivity, whether that's responding to customer emails in Outlook or attending customer meetings in Teams. And oftentimes, like after doing these tasks, it can be difficult for them to have to manually log what they've done on top of all of their other day-to-day job responsibilities. I know me personally, I used to set aside time on Fridays to manually log my tasks. And that's where business copilots help to bridge that gap between your systems of productivity and your systems of record. It's essentially going to eliminate the need for context switching and meet your users in their flow of work. So these business pilots, for example, copilots, for example, will surface CRM and customer service data directly in Outlook, Teams, PowerPoint, and Word. And this is very different from having one of your users go into ChatGPT, for example, and ask for assistance, because here it's meeting you directly in your flow of work, and it's protected by Azure Grade Enterprise Security. And again, we're going to empower user adoption and scale AI across your entire business, because I know all of our customers are interested in AI, but the next question is, how can we improve user adoption and scale? And this is exactly how you do it, starting with your users in the productivity applications they use every single day. So again, in the flow of work, right? And as we dive further into one of these business copilots, I want to touch on Microsoft Copilot for Sales. It's my personal favorite because I was an early adopter of it. And essentially, it's an AI assistant designed for sales teams to maximize productivity and really accelerate revenue generation. It brings sales insights and next-gen AI into Outlook, Teams, and Word. You'll be hearing me say that all the time because now instead of having to jump into CRM, I can just look at my sales emails and have my CRM information in a single flow of work. That's going to decrease me getting distracted, going into Outlook and being able to surface my CRM instead of, jumping across all my different tabs. I used to be that person that had a million tabs open, and now I only need one or two tabs, and it's truly transformed my life, and I can't wait for all of you to experience that as well. So again, it's cutting down on that tedious task switching, and you're able to instead automatically get that information at your fingertips instead of having to manually search. And as you can see, there's so many different use cases in just Copilot for Sales that you can take advantage of today, like creating a PowerPoint deck for a sales meeting. Instead of having to go in and manually create a PowerPoint deck, you could even reference it to your CRM account for theming templates, and in seconds have a PowerPoint deck ready. So some really exciting ways you can improve your efficiency and gain productivity. Now, what we just discussed, that was geared more for your sales organization. Now let's switch gears and think for a moment for those of you who have a contact center. Here's another way that Copilot can help different parts of your organization. So Copilot for Service builds on that next-gen AI from your Microsoft Copilot. It helps organizations boost agent productivity and deliver those compelling service experiences by modernizing your contact centers with generative AI. As Rohan mentioned, even in our case study, a lot of people are living in Outlook. So in this case, it's bringing customer service data, natural language, and next-gen AI into Teams and Outlook, and it can even be embedded into other service solutions. So again, this AI-powered Copilot actively diagnoses issues, poses follow-up questions, and pulls information from all of your resources. It's again going to help decrease agent turnover and increase their efficiency, ultimately leading to improved net promoter scores. So I know that was a lot of information, but that's everything in the Microsoft offerings, right? We have our all-encompassing Microsoft Copilot, supplemented with Copilot Studio, which is our low code, and with Azure AI Studio, which is our pro code. But let's quickly touch base on some other industry AI offerings that are out there. Some things that can sit outside your Microsoft tenant are, for example, ChatGPT for Teams, open source AI models, and other multimodal AI models. I'll now hand it off to Rohan to dive in further into each of these industry offerings.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Prachi. So yeah, let's quickly touch base on some of the other AI offerings out there, right? We've got ChatGPT for Teams, a couple of open source AI models, and multimodal AI models. For ChatGPT for Teams, it's really important to just distinguish this isn't ChatGPT for Microsoft Teams. This is ChatGPT for Teams, a product by OpenAI. So it's an OpenAI driven chatbot that uses ChatGPT that's available for business use. It's trained on a large amount of internet data that precedes 2023. And the key feature here, like a lot of the models that Prachi was just talking about it, is that if you use a ChatGPT for Teams subscription, it won't use your data to train the model. And that's really where that compliance layer comes in, is to ensuring that your IP isn't going to train the model that can then be called later. So that is one of the features that we can definitely unpack. And ChatGPT also has a for enterprise version available out there in the market that is, unfortunately, at this time, it still has a 150 user commit. So there's a barrier for entry, but it's really cool. It has a lot of very advanced compliance features built into it, which makes it much easier to integrate within your information systems. So that's one of the larger scale industry AI offerings out there. And it's also important to remember that we'll also touch on some other potential models that are out there for you to be aware of. For instance, there are when it comes to models, there are different context windows that you can work with. And there are a couple of open source AI models that are out there as well that you can get started with. You'll see different throughputs in terms of processing times, and that they're primarily driven by compute power, really. So the amount of compute power that the model has, that's how quickly it can expand. It can respond to you, right? If a lot of people are using it, it may not be able to as rapidly. And then you've got multimodal AI models, which basically mean models that can assimilate different kinds of information at the same time, like text, video, speech, etc. They typically have smaller context windows at this time, greater processing times, so it takes longer to get a response out. But ChatGPT just came out with ChatGPT 4.0, which is multimodal as well. That came out about a month ago. So it's worthwhile to note that technology is rapidly becoming more advanced. And so we've talked about all of these things, and really now we're going to come to the third piece of our webinar, which is talking about intelligent dynamics, right? How are we harnessing everything that we've learned to really curate a instance of dynamics in your organization that is, intelligent. And in order to do that, we really look at, this sort of a framework in order to understand how to implement dynamics in AI on a holistic level. And this is the first layer on top is always governance, risk, and compliance, because again, your CISO is your main ally, and especially with all of these technologies that are coming out now. So when we think of GRC, the way that we like to explain it is, think of a Venn diagram, 3 concentric circles, one smaller, bigger one around it, and bigger one around it. So your smallest circle is really your humans, right? It's thinking about the people that are going to be utilizing the technology. Humans are always the first line of defense in any cybersecurity strategy. Everyone will tell you that. It's also about making sure that you're upskilling folks and ensuring that they understand how to use these tools, that they're getting the proper training necessary, and they're understanding how to prompt it really well. The second is your data layer, and the data layer is critical because understanding where your data lies and making sure the data is clean is essential in any orchestration, right? It's bad data in, bad data out, or great data in, great output. So making sure that we have a control over data is very important, right? And then the last is the infrastructure that houses that, right? If it's in the cloud, that's great. If it's not in the cloud, it's really understanding that the infrastructure is protected and it's in a platform where it can be accessed, right? If you end up having a local instance of an AI model running, that's great. It can interface really well with your data that may be on premises, but it's really understanding that for some of these tools to work, you need to have your data in the cloud. So it's just understanding that entire layer from a GRC standpoint. And below that, you sort of get into having a UX layer, an orchestration layer, and an intelligence layer that are sort of paired on top of each other as well. So your UX layer is what's front end to your users, right? And that's utilizing Copilot Studio, Microsoft Copilot, or Microsoft Apps. Below that, you have sort of the ability to build an orchestration layer where you are actually integrating with different APIs and calling. So you can augment a Dynamics instance by using some of the tools that are available from Microsoft that really fit automatically into your instance, like Copilot, etc. But you also have the ability to use Azure AI's tools and harness really some of those more advanced offerings from Microsoft that are still fairly low code, no code environment, and call them using APIs to build them into Dynamics. And we talk about how we did that in this case really well. And then your last layer is really your intelligence layer there, right? It's understanding what your data is, as we already talked about, but also making sure you understand what your AI infrastructure looks like and you have that readiness within your organization. It's making sure that the infrastructure that you have built supports the underlying technology necessary for AI operations, really. And then all of this is again in the framework that we're talking about, made possible through cloud enablement. And really, this helps us drive towards data-driven decisions, having more advanced AI capabilities and just having a more robust infrastructure. And that's really critical as we talk about the cyber security landscape that we see as well. So just going back to our case, we'll talk a little bit about the company and the process that was used here, right? So again, we talked about how some of the problems that we faced were that there was a large backlog of emails, too many agents were staffed. Just recapping this for you, there were inconsistent responses from customers to customers, and low close rate for deals because of customer abandonment, right? So taking all this information, understanding that you can really build this kind of an implementation and use AI with dynamics and understanding all these tools, you as the head of technology really did an introspection exercise, and you were like, okay, what are the low-hanging fruit? What are the quick wins that I can achieve? But also, how do I create something that's sustainable in order to make sure that I gain competitive advantage within my organization? And in this particular case, the way that this has been done is really looking at this sort of an orchestration. It was orchestrated using this sort of a flow diagram that we've created. And we'll go through this together a little bit because I know it's a little complicated, but it's very interesting stuff. So effectively, you map out your business processes during the first exercise that we talked about, where you assess your state, etc. So here, what was happening, what as the head of technology, you ended up realizing is you have an email that's coming into CE. A trigger gets created, and it queries to receive the case number and email, really. So effectively, when a new email is coming in, it's making sure it maps to the dynamic CE application's case number. This triggers Power Automate, where the case number is passed as input, so it maps to all your data. Then you have this layer in the middle. As you can see, the sort of the box in the middle, that's really your AI orchestration layer over here. So effectively, your AI engine looks at the case number, looks at all associated old emails and historical data to sort of understand where is the email coming in context, because context is key for AI. Then it looks at the data set that you've trained it on. Really, it does all of these things, this vector embedding, it generates an AI response based on all the context that it has, both the history of the case, as well as all the knowledge base that you fed it. And once it does all of that, it connects it back to Microsoft Dynamics in order to really create a response or generate a response for your end user, your agent, where they're just clicking a button and the email is being generated completely context aware by itself. And in doing that, as the head of technology at this organization, you really picked on the low-hanging fruit, and you were able to orchestrate a solution that would reduce the amount of time it took your agents to respond to emails, from like, in this case, I believe it was from like 10 to 15 minutes to like 2 to 5 minutes. The agent is still sending the email. This is Copilot. That's very important to remember. The agent can directly modify or send the AI responses draft as is, but doing this allows for greater consistency in responses, a better customer journey, because the customer is getting responses faster, but also more accurate responses. And doing all of that really enables your Dynamics instance to become intelligent. And we'll talk about a little bit of this is one example of a use case, but we'll talk a little bit about just the outcomes that we received through this. I mean, Prachi, you're really in the thick of this every day at Microsoft. Being a technical specialist, this is your niche, right? So how would you comment on the solution that we implemented here from your perspective? How did we do?
Yeah, I think you all did a really great job. I mean, I definitely would not have even thought of the way you came up with that flow, because oftentimes, there's a lot of steps that go into these processes, and it's definitely perfected on, there's that trigger, that email, but then there's also, pulling from different data sources, finally giving that response that the agent, like you said, can choose to use or modify as needed. But again, it's decreasing the amount of time that they have to spend searching for this information, right? And I think being able to increase Net Promoter Score by just 3 points is monumental. It's definitely going to change the way, these agents work. So basically, they were able to decrease their backlog and really increase their revenue addition, right? Because of that intelligent flow you made, with the way that it's having a cascading effect. You have that Power Automate flow going through, being intelligent, and it's being trained on this. But again, it's going to be driving at scale for your entire customer service agent organization. So again, as you can see with Copilot, people are completing tasks much faster. And this case study that you all came up with a solution with really addresses that with quantifiable tactical business outcomes. So I'm going to hand it back off to you, but great job from my end.
Appreciate that, Prachi. But yeah, absolutely. And this is, as the head of technology, we're done with the case here, but really as the head of technology at this organization, we really noticed how tackling even the low-hanging fruit can really, really propel you and create a culture of sustainable growth. And it's all good stuff again, but what remains paramount always, and what's really music to all of you over here had I've ever had to look at a P&L sheet at the end of the month, is the ROI and the sustainability of these initiatives. And in that vein, we'll really talk quickly about what makes an implementation successful. And it's really these layers. You need a vision-driven digital roadmap. So aligning your senior leadership on the vision, value, and roadmap, reimagining your business domains to really drive customer experiences and lower your unit costs, and to foster sort of culture of innovation in your organization. So that's the top layer. All of this gets enabled by having these four prongs. You need the right talent, you need the right technology, you need the clean data, and you need the right processes, right? And once you have all of these put together, then you can really drive scalable adoption and growth within your organization. And this middle layer is really critical over here, given it just how everything is changing. And you really have to ask yourself how you can do a lot of these things rapidly. We're going to have a poll come on here in a second that'll ask you a great question over here as well, just to sort of understand where everyone's at in their readiness journey. So when you think about all of these things, you think about the content that we talked about today, it's good for us to just understand where we all lie together as a collective, as a camaraderie of technology leaders, right? Do we feel like we're ready to adopt this? We have a clear AI strategy, we're marching towards it. Are we partially there? Are we in the planning stage, or are we we just don't have plans yet? And that's either stage that you're in is okay, right? Because a lot of these technologies are new, but really we always like to say this example, right? And this of course predates Prachi and my time, but there was a time where businesses weren't, the dot-com movement came out, right? And businesses weren't dot-com businesses, but now most businesses are dot-com businesses. There was a time where most businesses weren't cloud businesses, and it was like cloud is going to be super expensive, but now we're all using Teams. A lot of businesses are cloud businesses, and the AI age is just something that's coming on as well. So it'll just be interesting to see what everyone's responses there are as well. Awesome. So right, again, thank you for participating in that poll. So right, as you look at how you can scale your team up to meet these demands, there are a couple of options that are out there. You can, hire contractors to come in and do a large amount of work quickly. You can build capability in-house for a long-term strategy, or you can try to find the right partner really in order to execute on a lot of these verticals and these initiatives. And again, really can't underscore the fact that this technology is here to stay. Like the examples that we just gave. I think we talked about earlier a little bit that AI isn't going to take over, but people using AI certainly will. And this is really the time to start to think through your AI readiness. And we've sort of put together a program to help you understand how you can drive value at your organization. Synoptek really, I know Alex went over, Synoptek's overview at the start, but we're really a advisory-led firm. That's what drives us. That's what gets us up in the morning. So we'd like to offer all of you a 2-hour envisioning session that you get exclusive access because you attended the webinar. So I would scan the QR code for details over there, and we leave this slide up for a second. But the goal with this this conversation is really to talk through and help you understand, no matter where you are in your journey of readiness, how to really create and foster a culture of sustainable impact using AI, both in your dynamic instance or in your organization holistically. It definitely is one of my favorite ways to spend an afternoon. So please connect, reach out, let's grab a virtual coffee, and we can talk about how Synoptek and using some of these Microsoft technologies, how we can help you envision and build some use cases. Get some quick wins and build traction. The best way to build traction is to get a couple of quick wins, do some proof of concepts, and how you can develop your own AI strategy. And we're always curious to hear what folks in the industry are up to. So yeah, that would be great. So I'll turn it over to Alex now.
Right. Thank you. I want to share a couple of our upcoming webinars so you can continue to engage with us. We have one tomorrow on Wednesday, June 26th. It is around data delay, empowering healthcare employees with managed technology. And then another one in July, on July 23rd, modernizing your MarTech stack to drive engagement, growth, and customer satisfaction. You're welcome to scan the QR codes here, and you can also find them on our website in our webinar and events page, and you can register directly there. We would love to see you at these next webinars. Next, I'd like to open it up to questions, and you can continue putting your questions in the Q&A forum, and I will share those with Rohan and Prachi, and we will start discussing those now. So go ahead and continue doing that. We do have a few here. One came in. Let's see. Are these AI models secure? And does Microsoft use customer data to train AI models?
So I can take this one.
Prachi,
I think
yeah.
this is a great question, and it's one we get from our customers a lot of times. So I can definitely mention that, everything you use with Microsoft as a Copilot or AI solution is protected by Azure Grade Enterprise Security, Privacy, and Compliance. And Microsoft never uses customer data to train its models. We use publicly available data to train the models. And I can actually hop into the Q&A section some documentation on Microsoft's privacy and trust section.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, we have a few more that have come in. One is, how can we ensure a smooth data flow between Dynamics 365 and other existing enterprise systems?
Yeah, another great question. I can take this one first too, Rohan, and then I'll give it to you to add any additional color in case I miss anything. But I think, when you're looking at using Dynamics and other existing enterprise systems, essentially everything that Dynamics runs on is the Power Platform. And out of the box, we have so many different connectors that all of our other customers are using as well. So there's already very established ways to ensure a smooth data flow. And even if you have other existing enterprise systems with Dynamics, you'll still be able to leverage those Copilot capabilities. So again, you have that guarantee from Power Platform connectors. If you have a solution that doesn't have an out-of-the-box connector, you can utilize partners like Synoptek to create those custom connectors as well.
Perfect. All right, we have another question. PVA transition to Copilot Studio. What's going to happen with current billing for messages versus sessions?
Rohan, do you want me to take this one?
Go for it, Prachi. You're on a roll.
I feel like I'm stealing your thunder, but yeah, I think that's a great question. What does the Copilot Studio licensing look like? It is on a per tenant and message level, and I'm going to send, again, some documentation on how that licensing works. As Microsoft updates features and embeds AI capabilities into solutions, prices, will be reflective of that. So that's a great question. Let me actually send some pricing information right now in the meantime.
Perfect. And then along the same lines, thanks for being so interactive with us, everyone. What's the approach to multi ops costs using the same D365 CE system, but then you want to segregate their own data when asking questions in Copilot for CS?
I think that's a really good question. It's a very nuanced question also. So there's a couple ways to think about this. I'm assuming here opcos means operating companies. If it isn't, please let us know. But there's a couple ways to do it. So you can obviously first is to look at sort of what your organizational structure and hierarchy is. So you define your business units, you set up different distinct business units for OpCo within CE. And that's fundamental to just segregating them and managing security. And Dynamics has great tools to configure security roles and teams, so you can do that. Then you can use field security profiles really to restrict access to sensitive data based on the fields and the opcos and create record ownership. And then there's the data access and permissions level. So you can customize security rules to limit records just within the particular business unit and implement something called access teams for more granular data access control. So once all of that's done, what's important to remember is that for Copilot, if I'm utilizing Copilot, the answers that I get are only going to be limited to the data that I have permissions to access. Copilot natively, and Praj, keep me honest here, Copilot natively is only going to give me the information that I would otherwise be able to find myself. So if your data access and permissions are set properly and Copilot is integrated, Copilot's boundaries will continue to respect the boundaries of the least access privilege principle that you've assigned to me. So if I can only see two opcos, I will only be able to get data for those two opcos, right? And that's really something that we can work with you on in the back end to make sure that's configured correctly if you're using custom Copilots, etc. But it's also one of the security and compliance features built in by Microsoft. They really make sure that your data that the permission levels are properly set. Now, I will say, if permission levels aren't set, it's actually very interesting as to what kinds of information you can get access to. So yeah, it's a great exercise in making sure your permissions are set correctly as well.
Perfect, thanks. Okay, there's a couple more if we have time to go over. It looks like we do. How to prioritize different aspects of AI integration within Dynamics 365 to develop an effective implementation roadmap.
I think that's a great question. I would really love to unpack that further because that's very nuanced. I think that's definitely something we should talk about in one of our readiness assessments, because there's so many ways to do it. Typically, the way we from a very high level, what I'll say is, we like to identify like a proof of concept that you could pilot based on a use case that would make sense for your business, and then we really move forward in iterating that. But that's absolutely something we'd love to talk with you more about as we in like a coffee chat or something.
Perfect. Let's see, how does this integration address data security and privacy concerns, especially with the use of Azure AI?
Yeah, I can take that. I think looking at that documentation link on how Microsoft's privacy, data, and security approach is, really encompasses how that affects how the data is used. And as Rohan mentioned, like, even if I were to use, for example, Copilot for sales, I would only be able to see information that I'm credentialed to view in the CRM. So everything is authenticated by Microsoft Entra ID, which used to be known as Azure Active Directory. So again, you have role-based access into everything that you're doing when it comes to Copilot, and everything is being captured in the audit logs as well. So you can rest assured that everything is secure and safe.
Okay, let's see here. Can you connect Copilot to external data sources?
Okay, I want to give a second, but yes, absolutely you can. And that's where we use Copilot Studio to really extend to different data sources, whether that's external websites, SharePoint, other enterprise systems. So you absolutely can connect to multiple data sources. We definitely encourage utilizing partners to help you with that process as well, like Synoptek, to navigate that approach.
Perfect, thanks. All right, and then what key factors should be considered when aligning AI initiatives within Dynamics 365 to the overall business strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. Also, it's something definitely that we can unpack in greater detail. When it comes to key strategies that you sort of want to make sure that you're aligning with, it's just important to make sure first that governance, risk, and compliance framework is really well thought of, that your permissions are set right, that people understand what the tools can and can't do, and that they understand that the tools are, it's co-pilot, it's not pilot. So it's making sure that your folks know exactly what the guardrails are of the solution, and they use it accordingly, right? Because it is a very powerful tool, but again, it's generative AI, so they need to check all the responses properly. So that's definitely one piece of it. On a strategic level, it's really about finding what the lowest common denominators are across the board, and really understanding where the pain points. If you really understand how the technology works, it becomes very apparent to understand exactly where Copilot can drive the most benefit, right? Like, let's take Copilot for sales. I think Prachi was giving a very good example earlier on how when uh, it can transform the way that you are operating and being productive. Really, these are tools of productivity. So we are being productive where you're not operating in 20 different tabs. You don't have to go and read a ton of text in order to be productive. Even simple things like enabling Copilot and allowing it to summarize case information from you can go a long way towards how you interact with your customers. If you're in sales team and the customer calls you and it's a lead, and you're juggling 100 leads at the same time, or 20 leads, it's hard to be able to give that personalized response and read and talk at the same time. But if you have that summarized in front of you, it can be a game changer for folks in the contact center. So, but we can definitely chat more about how specifically within your industry, if you could have some context on which industry you're in, we can talk to some things that we're seeing specifically for use cases there and strategies to employ.
Okay. Thanks so much. So that brings us to the end of our Q&A section and time. I want to thank you all for joining us today for our session on using AI to elevate your Microsoft Dynamics IQ. I hope you found the information shared valuable and insightful. If you would like to continue the conversation or are interested in taking advantage of the complimentary AI Envisioning session, you still have the opportunity to do so. So you can go ahead and scan the QR code and complete that form, and we'll connect with you directly. And if you decide later that you still would like to connect with us, just reply to our post email. We'd love to hear from you. Lastly, be sure to keep an eye out on your inbox for a follow-up email and with resources related to today's webinar. Until next time, take care and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.